Good afternoon and thank you for joining us for the live stream of Mulberry Schools Trust First Partnership of Equals Conference, taking place today at the QE2 Centre in London. If you've been watching the live stream this morning, we hope you're enjoying the conference and are finding it inspirational. If you are just tuning in, this morning's session is now available on YouTube. It's been a fantastic morning, and so far we have heard from a range of dance practitioners discussing how dance interacts with gender in today's society. Shortly, you will get the chance to watch our keynote speech delivered by Edwina Dunn, founder of The Female Lead, recorded earlier today. This will be followed by the Gender and Shakespeare panel discussion, which will be streamed live from the conference, chaired by theatre director David Lan. With David Lan will be actors Jade Anuka and Papa Esudu and director Carrie Cracknell. Afterwards, the winners and runners-up in the school's poetry competition will be announced and performed, including a special performance by Dave Nita. In June and September, students from schools participating in the conference wrote poems on the theme of gender inequality. A judging panel reviewed the poems, scoring them on how well they met the brief and their interpretation of the theme. Finally, we will return live to the conference for the closing address by Shami Chakrabarti, Shadow Attorney General and a member of the House of Lords. Our aim today is to create awareness of the global and national context of gender inequality and the negative impacts it can have on society, as well as how gender equality is important for all people. We will explore the role of the creative arts in breaking down gender inequality and creating a more equitable world. We wish to discuss the obstacles faced by all people in the field and celebrate the achievements of those who are succeeding in it. But above all, we want to discover how young people, as the future world leaders, can shape the change that will occur in our society, whilst empowering each other to succeed in the creative arts. A pack of conference resources have been produced based on the themes of today. These can be downloaded from the conference website, www.partnershipofequals.org. to enable you to explore deeper into the issues raised. We would also love you to get involved, so please tweet us at MulberryTH using the hashtag Partnership of Equals. We hope you enjoy watching and are inspired by what you hear this afternoon.
We would now like to welcome Edwina Dunn from The Female Lead to make our second keynote address. Edwina is a data science entrepreneur who has always been fascinated by people's stories and motivations. As the co-founder of worldwide loyalty programs like Tesco's Club Card, Edwina knows firsthand what it feels like to work in a male-dominated industry and how women's lack of confidence so often holds them back. Edwina created The Female Lead to be a platform that celebrates women's stories and showcases the lesser-known successes of women in order to support and encourage the next generation.
Wow. Well, hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here, and I really love seeing that. I remember when I first saw Matthew Bourne's Swans, and I went to the theatre, and I was literally electrified. I'd never seen anything like it. It was incredibly original, and I loved seeing that dance. Well done, everyone. It was fantastic. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is my project that was born out of my, I suppose, awareness that I was working, and I have worked for quite a long time. I was working in an incredibly male world. I mean, what's interesting is I've worked in retailing all of my career. 80% of customers for retailing are women. And yet there were no women running retailers anywhere across the world, or very, very few. So every boardroom I walked into, it was wall-to-wall men. So the reason when I sold the business, I retired in 2011, I decided to start this project because I thought I could have done with a little bit of inspiration, a few role models, and I hope and trust and believe that everybody here, boys and girls, would benefit from being able to name at least one living female role model. So that's my ambition. The project is all about empowering girls and women through storytelling. And the reason that that is important is because we just don't see enough female success. We don't see the diversity of success. We don't see female surgeons, female construction workers. We don't see female engineers. And so this project is all about bringing to life stories that are out there in their thousands, but that just haven't appeared or been told yet. So this is the project. These are just some of the amazing women. We have 60 women that we showcase in this book and this and the films that we've created. So this is the book. I know that some of you are familiar with it already, which I'm really delighted about, not least because we have the wonderful Dr. Vanessa Ogden and the Mulberry School as one of our stories, and a very, very important one. So the book is the stories of 60 amazing women, and the whole idea is that this gets donated to schools, and we're in fact just starting universities as well in the year to come, and it's going to 18,000 schools here in the UK and across the US. So it's there so that people can see, because obviously you can't be what you can't see. So the idea is to tell those stories and make them visible. We learn by stories, we live by stories, and we evolve by telling stories. And I think this is a truth that we tend to forget. Stephen Moffat, who's the TV writer and producer, says, an awful lot of storytelling isn't really about making people understand. It's about making them care. And I really like that. And then the even more amazing Maya Angelou says, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that I find really powerful, really moving. And what we want people to feel here is that there are 60 different ways to be amazing. So storytelling can trigger change and provide all sorts of creative solutions to gender inequality. I mean, that's just one of the things that we express when we show diversity and incredible stories that show different lives, different age groups, different countries of origin. So this is the book. That's what the campaign's all about. And we want everybody to share this. We want people to talk about it, share it with others, and connect, and gift it to other schools. So these are some of the women in our stories. So we have the incredible Claire Smith there, who is a 3-star Michelin chef. She has launched her new restaurant, which is called Core in North Kensington, and she actually hosted an event for the female lead. It was the most amazing dinner, quite incredible. She's extraordinary, generous. Her story is amazing, and I hope you will either watch the films or read the interview in the book. You'll recognize many of those. Lima Gobi is actually in the audience of the film I'm going to show you in a moment. So she's a Nobel Peace Prize winner. She came to London when we did a panel with Disney, and she asked a question. She was amazing, quite amazing. Michaela de Prince is actually, she's a prima ballerina with the Dutch National Ballet Company. She tells an amazing story. She's from Sierra Leone. And she talks about being a poppy in a field of daffodils. She always knew she was different, and she's beautifully different. She tells a great, great story. She too came to London for our Disney event. Madonna is making a film of her life story, and I think it will be a fascinating one. You probably know Jo Malone, Roya Mahbub, and Francesca Ramsey. They're just a few, but they're all amazing. Francesca Ramsey, do any of you know her? She's a vlogger. Anybody? Anybody heard of her? Okay, she's based in America, but she has millions and millions of followers. Extraordinary. So I hope I've tempted you there with some of the stories. The one I want to focus on and the one I want to share with you today is this lady's, Brenda Berkman. So Brenda Berkman and I were in New York last week, and we went to a school in Greenwich Village, and we met some of the younger people there. I think they were 9 to 11. And they were fantastic. And her story is all about being a firefighter. Back in the day when it really wasn't easy to be a firefighter, and she's going to tell you that story. She says social change is a marathon, not a sprint, and I think, it's an important learning that's come from years of her fighting to be and to do what she felt she was driven to do, that she was passionate to do, and you're going to hear her story.
It's a fire helmet that I was given when I first came on the job, and I have a medal for responding on 9/11 at the Trade Center. That first 24 hours or so was the most dangerous time to be working down there. Most of all, I really wanted to help people because that's the way I'd been brought up by my parents and my teachers, to work in political campaigns, to march in picket lines, to do things to try and make the world a better place and to try and help their fellow citizens, and I was inspired by all of that. So when New York City opened up the position of firefighter for women to file for the first time, I was still in law school when that happened, and I filed to become a firefighter. And I immediately started training to pass the physical test. And what happened was they changed the test to make it harder for women to pass. And we'd all failed. One of the reasons I decided to go ahead with the lawsuit was because I was tired of having people say to me, you can't do that because you're a girl or you're a woman. So I was tired of girls not being senators and president and world leaders. I thought, why would you automatically exclude 50% of the talent pool for these ridiculous reasons? Almost 5 years after I took the test, I won my lawsuit to everyone's great surprise, and the city had to develop a new job-related firefighter entry exam, which I took, and all of a sudden a lot of other women expressed interest, and they came out of the woodwork and they took the test also. And about 40 of us passed and went into the fire academy. It actually became sort of open season on the women firefighter trainees. There was a lot of crazy stuff that went on. And to their credit, that first group of women, which I was part of, almost nobody quit. Even during all that stuff, people were getting injured, people were getting verbally abused, people were being physically harmed and hit out at the academy, and most women just sucked it up and went on because we all felt that, well, once we get out into the firehouse, things will get better. It did not get better. And my air tank was drained. People refused to speak or talk to me. I'd come back from a fire, and my helmet would be all dirty, and they'd clean the helmet so it would look like I hadn't done anything. Social change is a marathon and not a sprint. And when you go into these things that challenge the deepest fears and stereotypes and prejudices of people, it's not going to be like, even when you win in court, snap, oh, thank you very much for doing that. Okay, we've all changed our attitudes now. We'll do what you say. That did not happen, and I knew that probably would not happen. So why would I quit? I owed it to the people that went ahead of me, and I owed it to the people that were coming after me to make the world different and not just give up. Women are still impoverished. They're still not making the full amount of money that men make for the same occupations. They're still being discouraged from tech industries and other kinds of opportunities that you would have thought would have ended being boys' clubs long ago. And in fact, there's whole new boys' clubs, that didn't exist when I was growing up. The whole internet and tech industry wasn't around, and it just seems like, what do you mean you can't find qualified women to do this work? It's just crazy.
She's amazing, isn't she? Really incredible. And her story is so powerful. And, she loves it when I talk to her about the tech industry because, my business grew to be 1,500 people in 25 countries around the world. We were 50% female. 50%. It's tech industry. It's not true that women aren't great at tech. They're fantastic at tech. They just have to believe in it. So she tells a great story. She's a fantastic campaigner. She was, I don't know whether you heard at the beginning, she was one of the first into the fire at the Twin Towers in 9/11. So that was the most dangerous time to be there. She was an extraordinarily brave woman, and I'm very fond of her. What was interesting is from the story she told, there was a young boy in the audience. He was 10 years old. This is what he said. My parents have told me about 9/11 and Hurricane Sandy and Katrina, but I didn't realize that women help out in relief efforts. I thought that was quite sweet, quite honest, which is, these guys are doing really tough jobs. So it is all about equality. So, what do we learn from all of this? We learn that sharing real-life stories of female politicians, of artists, of journalists, teachers, engineers, these stories will inspire women everywhere, girls, women, everywhere, to realize their hopes and ambitions. So storytelling is really, really powerful, and I'm sure everyone here has at one time watched a Disney movie. And we all know how influenced we are by our female role models in films. The lead character, the female lead, is an important character that we watch and learn from. And if you look at those characters over time, they're beginning to change. So, I have worked now with Disney on a couple of things. I think we're going to work on a couple more. I'm going to tell you about this in just a moment. This is what's coming. So we're going to have Captain Marvel coming, and we have a really powerful female character in that role. I'm excited about that. We obviously now have a new female Doctor Who, which was a breakthrough moment. So these changes are beginning to happen within the media industry. The force, the belief, the encouragement, this is beginning to make these things happen. Wrinkle in Time. Wrinkle in Time was directed by Ava DuVernay, who's one of the women in my book and my films, the female lead. She's an extraordinary film director. She's the first woman of color who is making a $100 million plus CGI movie. So she's broken the history books. She's going on to do more. She's an awesome figure. This was her cast, and I am delighted that we were invited to partner with them for the European launch of Wrinkle in Time. And I'm going to show you part of the interviews and the panel session that we did. I got to sit next to my absolute heroine, Oprah Winfrey. She was amazing. And you're going to hear what they said. After I've shown you Storm Reid. Now, Storm Reid is the 14-year-old Meg in the film. She says, the biggest lesson I've learned is always to love yourself and to always embrace your faults, because those faults can help you too. Very wise. I hope girls everywhere share this story with their friends, because Meg shows you can do anything. You can do anything that you want. I love that. She's very eloquent. You're going to see her in the film. Here we go. Wonderful.
A warrior is a person who finds the light in the darkness, who fights for what's right and what's good.
Hello, I'm Edwina Dunn. I'm the founder of The Female Lead, which is a book we're gifting to 18,000 schools across the UK and the US in the hope that we encourage girls to find more diverse role models.
To be a warrior, I feel like you should be strong, and not physically strong, but mentally strong, and you should just love yourself, and I think it's...
Thank you.
A warrior is a person who finds the light in the darkness, who fights for what's right and what's good.
Hello, I'm Edwina Dunn. I'm the founder of The Female Lead, which is a book we're gifting to 18,000 schools across the UK and the US in the hope that we encourage girls to find more diverse role models.
To be a warrior, I feel like you should be strong, and not physically strong, but mentally strong, and you should just love yourself, and I think it starts with you, and embracing your uniqueness, and your smartness, and your beautifulness, and your faults and mistakes.
Someone who never accepts no for an answer, who always thinks yes is a possibility.
Drive, determination, vision, knowing what you want, setting out how to get there, and doing it for all the right reasons.
The ability to believe in yourself and to keep going against all the odds.
Someone who knows that they have a light inside of them. It doesn't matter what's going on around them, they can stay focused on the good even in hard times.
Someone who sees injustice and wants to stand up to it. Someone who spreads goodness instead of darkness.
A warrior is a person who has courage. And as you know, courage is a feeling that you can only have after you have felt fear, which is why courage is so important and so hard.
Showing your flaws and understanding that it doesn't need to define you, but it can make you into the person that you're meant to be today, and to just enjoy that.
Strength, courage, bravery, and just not being afraid to stand up for what you believe in, I think.
We need a huge number more women, women of colour, women of different races and ethnicities, disabled women, trans women, in order to really let every young person look up and see somebody that they feel a connection to.
Well-behaved women rarely make history. Walk and leave footprints that last.
Nothing is ever going to go right all of the time, but what's really important about that is that you keep striving, you keep showing courage, and the more you use your courageous muscle, as it were, and the stronger it gets.
So learning resilience is probably one of the hardest things of all, because it's so easy to give up when something goes wrong. It's so easy to start believing that you're the problem and that this hasn't just been an odd set of circumstances or things have conspired. So you have to keep your belief. You have to dare to be different, to follow your passion, to keep going, and keep telling yourself that it's hard, but it's worth it. Thank you for resetting that. There were two things that Oprah said that stayed with me and meant an awful lot to me. One was she tells a very funny story of you know, why am I so rich? Because she is really, really rich. I mean, she had diamond earrings on her like I've never seen. They were amazing. But she's a force for good. And you know, some of the things she said were just so, I don't know, uplifting and meaningful. She says that she was underestimated the whole of her career, the whole of her life. And that is what allowed her to do what she did. She kept surprising people because they never expected her to be so successful. They never expected her to be so popular. So she used that disadvantage to her advantage. She did a deal with the studio that says, if I get an audience of X, I get half the company, right? And they went, yeah, sure, because you'll never do it. And she did it. So using that sense of underestimation, you can turn to a force for good, a force for power. It's one of the things she said. The second one she talks about in this film, she talks about the light within you. And I think it's just such a beautiful metaphor. She talks about find the light within you, within each of you. And, you know, really what it means is the thing that you care about, the passion, the belief you have within you, understand it, treasure it, and build on it. Because that is what will take you forward. That belief, that passion that is inside every one of you, hidden, quiet, perhaps as yet underdeveloped. Think about it. And today, think about what that is for you, even if you're a little uncertain. So for me, they were beautiful and powerful words. I think some of you might have been there that night. Is there anybody here who was there that evening? Yay, lovely. Any more? No, you're the special one. Wow, you were there. Wonderful. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, great. Okay, so I'm going to leave you now with one last, oops, no, not a play of that. One last request, please. So we've extended our website. We now have this new page where we have all the images from the female lead with all the different quotes from the women. You can visit it and you can share these with your own messages to any of your friends or your mum or your grandmother or your brother or whoever you want to share them with. And we hope this will be a nice way for you to share what you've related to, who's inspired you. Share that with someone else on your social, and that way the message gets carried forward. It's kind of like pay it forward, which we hope you'll enjoy. And I think, Vanessa, you're going to encourage them a little bit in that direction afterwards. So enjoy. Jude Kelly is one of our amazing women, as you can see there. So enjoy it, and thank you so much, all of you, and Vanessa in particular, for inviting me to share this story with you today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwina, for sharing your story with us and for sharing positive role models through the female lead. If you haven't yet had the chance to see the female lead photos in our media lounge or download them for yourselves, please take a look later on at lunch. Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed your lunch and are ready for our next panel.
Our second panel will be discussing gender, Shakespeare and theatre. This panel will be chaired by David Land. David was artistic director of the Young Vic from 2000 to 2017, where he produced more than 150 shows and directed, amongst others, Black Tar and As You Like It. He is also consulting artistic director of the soon-to-be-built Performing Arts Center at the World Trade Center in New York. He has received a George Orwell Award and an Olivier Award and a CBE.
David will be joined by Jade Anuka. Jade has starred in ITV series Cleaning Up and Trauma. Jade starred in the Donmar Warehouse all-female Shakespeare trilogy and shared Ian Charleston Award commendation for her performance in Julius Caesar. Jade was winner of the Stage Award for Acting Excellence in Edinburgh Fringe in 2014. Jade recently did a TED Talk on the subject of being black, being a woman, being other.
Carrie Cracknell has been Associate Director at the Young Vic and the Royal Court. Her theatre work includes A Doll's House at the Young Vic, which was nominated for Evening Standard Best Director Award, and I Am Falling at Sadler's Wells, which was nominated for a South Bank Show Award for dance. Her operas include Wozzeck for the English National Opera, which received the Olivier nomination for Best New Opera Production.
We also have Papa Esudu with us. Papa's television credits include Kiri, Press, The Miniaturist, and A Midsummer Night's Dream. Film includes Murder and The Orient Express. On stage, Papa recently played Hamlet for the Royal Shakespeare Company, for which he won an Ian Charleston Award.
Before
Thank you.
Doesn't work.
Thank you. We hope your discussions were thought-provoking.
We will now have our second panel of the day discussing Shakespeare, theatre and gender. Much like before, each panelist will have 2 minutes to discuss their own journey and tell us a little bit about themselves. After this, Chair will ask them a variety of questions.
If you think of any questions that you'd like to ask our panelists today, please do write them down. Then there will be a chance for you to ask them. You can raise your hands, and once you are recognized by a chair, a roving mic will make its way to you.
Before asking your question, please state your name and school clearly. Please welcome our panel to the stage.
Thanks. Thanks, guys. Where'd you want us? Anywhere. Be my friend.
Yes, great. There we go. Okay, good. Now, before we begin, let's just find out who's from where. Who have we got here from Manchester? Hey. Whoa. And who have we got from Southampton? Okay. And who have we got from Somerset? Thank you. And who have we got from London? Okay, but what I really want to know is who have we got here from Stratford-on-Avon? Like nobody. Okay. So we're safe, right? We can say anything we like. We can get away with anything we say. Okay, great. Okay, we just introduce ourselves briefly. My name's David Lan. I direct and I produce theatre. And for many years I ran the Young Vic Theatre, but I don't do that anymore. Carrie.
My name's Carrie and I'm a theatre director and I'm about to move across into film and I've been directing since I was in my early 20s.
Hi, my name's Papa. I'm an actor. I've done Shakespeare plays. I've done other things. But yeah.
Okay.
I'm Talisa. I'm an actor. I've also done Shakespeare and other things. We've done something together.
We have, yeah.
And with Carrie. Yeah. And I've worked in the Young Vic.
And you worked in the Young Vic. Jade.
My name's Jade. I'm an actor. Some of you from Mulberry, I performed in your school. I don't know if anyone here saw that. The Henry IV. Wow. Oh, which did you see? Oh, no, that weren't me.
Tobias.
I'm Tobias. I'm an actor. I've done Shakespeare and other stuff. So yeah.
Great. Okay, let's just do a little check. What parts of Shakespeare have you played, Martin?
I've done Romeo, Hamlet, Demetrius in Midsummer Night's Dream, Fenton in The Merry Wives of Windsor, which I'm sure you all saw, and Edmund in King Lear.
Okay, all men.
All men, yeah.
Okay, Talisa.
Emilia in Othello, Diaphanta. Who's that? That's not even Shakespeare.
It's not even Shakespeare.
I did it at the Globe, so I got confused.
No. Anything at the Globe has
Emilia.
to be Shakespeare. Amelia. Okay, Amelia in Othello.
Yeah.
Jade.
I played Juliet, Ophelia, Maria, Olivia, and more recently Hotspur, Mark Antony, and Ariel.
And is Ariel man or woman?
Well,
hey.
I think Ariel could be either.
Okay, so you've done lots of women, you've done 2 men, and 1 that could be either.
Yeah.
Tobias.
Hamlet and Edgar in Lear.
Okay, great, thank you. Look, before we kick off, I want to ask a question. I want to ask 2 questions. And if you could answer by raising your hand, who in the room thinks that it's okay, it's fine, if women play parts that Shakespeare originally wrote as a man? Who thinks that's fine? Okay. Who thinks, thank you, who thinks it's really good if women play parts originally written for men? All right, so about half of you, is that fair? About half of you think it's really good, and the other half think it's kind of okay, you can do it or not do it. Is that fair? Is there anybody who thinks, let me ask the question, you've got to be really brave to put your hand up now. Is there anybody who thinks it's really bad? It's a mistake, it's wrong for women to play parts originally written by Shakespeare as men? Anybody? Okay. All right, now look, we're going to talk about these questions for a few minutes amongst ourselves. Then I'm going to ask people for questions or opinions. And at the end of that, let's ask those questions again. But what I'd like to do is really look at this quite hard and see if we can persuade you, because everybody in the room thinks it's a good thing, basically. It's either okay or it's good. Let's see if there's another way of looking at it. Okay, let's really challenge. Because you all think more or less the same things. Let's really challenge this. Let's start with Carrie. Carrie, let me ask you a question. Okay, we all think Shakespeare's really good, okay? Shakespeare is our great national playwright. And the whole of Europe think that English theatre is the best, basically because we had Shakespeare.
Is that true?
Let's say. Okay. At least we agree he's really good, and his plays get done time after time after time after time, 400 years. I mean, how many Hamlets every year, how many, and so on. Okay. If we think he's so good, how could he have got it wrong? How can we challenge him on these absolute basics that this character should be played, this character as a man should be played by a man, this character as a woman should be played by a woman?
Just do you want me to say my real answer or the answer that I'm trying to persuade the room, David?
No, you've got to say your real answer.
So I think the reason we go back to Shakespeare again and again is because the characters are deeply human and flawed, and I think to some extent that's outside of gender. I think in some of the plays, gender is a really centralising force for the character, but I think we're kind of obsessed with Shakespeare because he looks at the human condition. So I would say that's why there is the potential for, I'm not doing what you'd ask me to do, which is to persuade everyone in the wrong direction, but that there's a kind of openness and a porousness to his characters because they seem to try and take on all of human behaviour in existence. So frailty and damage and bad behaviour and kind of psychological complexity, and in a way that's often the most defining thing rather than the gender. I mean, Macbeth is its own very particular play and there are very strong gender lines in some of the plays, but often I think it's about the human condition, and that's why I think that we're interested in kind of going back to them and reassessing them through a new lens, I guess.
And would you say the human condition, all those qualities that you mentioned, is the same whether the character is a man or a woman?
No, because I think all of us are formed by and a kind of construct of the world that we live in, the conditions of our own experience, whether that's our class, our gender, our race, our wealth, our experience of humanity. It forms who we are. And so, of course, he is trying to define characters, and they are kind of made through their own construct and their own experience.
Okay, but I think what you're saying is very interesting and maybe one of the key questions. Because if it is true, as you're suggesting, that what makes us who we are is partly the fact that, like, I was born in a man's body, but also that I was brought up in the way I was, with everybody thinking I'm a man and treating me as a man, then I'm going to be different from a woman who, okay. But he wrote these characters, and as you say, with this great complexity. So now we're just going, well, it doesn't really matter. Can we play by mind? What do you think, Jane?
Well, I think like you say, I think what happens when you have a woman playing these parts that are written for a man is that you see those, you see all the stuff, all the emotions that Shakespeare wrote as a man, but through a different lens. And so new things come up because we all have the capacity to go through those same experiences, whether you're male or female. But you attack it in a different way, or you approach it in a different way because of your upbringing. So I think it just, or your class, or your race, or all those other experiences. And so you, as an actor, bring a bit of you to that character. And so which is why people say, every portrayal of Hamlet is different. Whether that's because, and that's if even between men, because they all have their own different experiences of life that they're bringing into it. And then if you add somebody from a different gender, so you've got a woman playing that, they're going to come with their own experiences. You've got somebody who's a different age, you've got somebody who's from a different class, who's had a different background. They all bring a bit of them, the actor, in. And so by doing that, different things are shown or enlightened or focused on because of the difference in that actor.
When you played men in Henry IV, right?
Yep.
Did you do any particular preparation or research? Or did you feel that your experience in your own life had given you enough in order to play that man?
Well, for that particular show, it was a kind of double-layered thing. Well, I was playing, it was set in a female prison, set in a prison. So I was playing a prisoner who was playing Hotspur. And so suddenly I was like, it gave me a stepping stone to get to Hotspur, who, for all of us probably sat here, is so far away. The idea of leading an army, the idea of going out and trying to, kill for country, or maybe I'm right for the throne. These things aren't in our lives really in that way. And so, but weirdly, easily I could step into a prisoner character. And that prisoner character, and we had, this is kind of it's quite dense. But then you've got that life, and if you're in a world where actually violence and those power struggles are much more relevant or close to your life, then actually weirdly we found that prisoners, and we took these shows into prisons, that women in prison were able to identify with those situations that the Shakespearean characters were going through much easier than I could. So that was a great stepping stone. And actually then, yes, I could get into that character.
Okay, so we can draw a distinction in two different things that could happen. One is, like you're describing, a female actor plays a woman playing a man. That's what you did, right?
That's one way of doing it, yeah.
But the other way is for a woman to play a man.
Yeah, well, I found like I couldn't play a man. I felt like that was not interesting. I was playing a character. Now, that character may have been written as a man, but I was playing what the character goes through. So if the character is actually, like you talking about, Harry was talking about in the rehearsal before, what is your action? What are you trying to achieve? What do you want from that other character in your scene? Those things don't change. I was playing the character. In that scene, the character needs this. In that scene, the character wants to do that. In that scene, the character needs to achieve that. Those are the same things rather than trying to play a man doing that, I'm just playing that.
Okay, great. Pablo, have you ever thought about playing one of the women's parts in Shakespeare?
Why? Why would you when there are so many great male parts?
Really, honestly, I haven't kind. I suppose because the conversation is so much skewed in the opposite direction of like providing opportunities the other way that I haven't kind of. I'd feel really presumptuous to. I worked with David Suchet, and he's always talking about wanting to play great female characters, and I feel that's like a little bit kind of covetous. Do you know what I mean? You've had like so many opportunities to like give someone a chance, you know. So I haven't really, no.
I mean, one of the things, I don't know how often this gets talked about, but the plays were originally written for men to play all the parts.
Yeah.
You know, and the women were played by young men or boys, right? Do you think, Tomas, I mean, having done Shakespeare quite a lot, and I'm sure seen hundreds of productions, do you think that affected the way he wrote the women's parts?
It's a really hard question to answer. You feel in the writing that he's understanding, and I don't know whether the women in the panel would back me up on this, but it feels like they feel very complex and rounded and real female character. They don't feel like he's writing for a boy when I read it. But I really like the provocation you're bringing up, because I do think that gender in these plays are a big engine. and it does make a difference whether the person that comes on is a man or a woman by their gender. It does affect it. Now, I'm not saying it's dominant, and it definitely you can definitely make arguments for putting that aside in order for greater opportunity or whatever the argument is. But it does, yeah. I mean, we didn't get a chance to in the rehearsal, but before we came on, we thought, wouldn't it be interesting to have switched and to have had Lisa read the Macbeth part and me to read the Lady Macbeth part, and what is in the line by line that is specifically male or female. And I think it does vary play to play, because I think arguably something like Hamlet, there's huge tranches of that where I think it does feel very universally human and not particularly gendered, whereas I think maybe Macbeth or Titus, or those more masculine parts, it's pretty obvious there's a lot of machismo in there. So,
Jade, when Tobias said he thought that the women's parts were as complex, or as you shook your head, right? You don't.
Yeah, I disagree. I think there are some in there, but I think most of them, I think the reason why they're small, they tend to be small characters, is because he's written it for a young boy, and he gives the big characters to the actors, the older actors that have experience, because Shakespeare was writing for an acting company. And
people
so
who could carry those
people
roles.
who could carry those roles, ones with
yeah.
experience, and then he was like, and then I've got the female character, and I think if there were women on stage at the time, he would have written better parts. But he had I don't know how old, let's say a 15-year-old boy who maybe hadn't done much acting before. He's not going to give him the biggest role ever, so he gives him a smaller role, slightly on the side, that is, and often in those scenes, that character isn't driving the scene, it's the other character driving the scene.
Isn't there a bigger structural reason, though, as well? I agree with that, but there's a bigger thing which I'm fixated on, which is that women are only really in the last generation or two entering public life, right? So we don't have plays about women in public life as leaders, as queens, as prime ministers, as difficult, diffident warmongers. We have plays about women who are sisters and lovers and wives, and the ciphers to men, and men are the protagonists. So if you look at kind of the classical body of literature, both novels and plays, that's the central driving narrative for most material, and Shakespeare's a really big part of that. So I kind of agree that it's partly about who he was writing for, but it was also partly about the world that surrounded him, because he wrote about Macbeth and about Hamlet, about leaders who were male and the women who intersected with that. And I think what's happening at the moment, what it feels to me is shifting and breaking open, is us understanding how to tell stories about women as the protagonists in their own lives, changing the world and becoming public figures, and the men in their lives, and that's starting to open. But the problem for me about our fixation with Shakespeare is that it's right at the heart of a kind of very, very deep structural narrative issue about how men and women play out their own stories in their own lives.
So should we just ditch him?
That's what I was going to say.
Go on, Timothy, go on.
When you first asked the question, Carrie went, is it the most important thing? I often feel that if Shakespeare was around now, he'd be going, what are you doing? I wrote a new play every bloody month. Like, I could have he would have wanted completely new subjects. And at the National, sometimes they do readings of plays that could possibly be done, so workshops of, every theatre you have rehearsal time with actors that the director normally knows to read the play, decide if you're going to do it. And I did this reading, and we got to the end, and we all thought there was West Country people reading for the clowns. And what play was it? It's the one with Hermione. Winter's Tale. West Country people were reading for the clowns, and they were angry because they were like, why is it that we're Northern and we're supposed to be playing the people that are funny? We had,
or a bit thick.
Yeah. And we had the women, Hermione's supposed to be the most beautiful person in the world, and everyone knows who she is because she's the most phenomenally beautiful thing. Who are you going to cast in that role? And what view are you going to give as beauty for a woman if you do this play? And there's so many complications, I think. I just think new writing is the one.
I just recently did a play, which it's almost arguably like a new Shakespeare play. And it was called Queen Margaret, and it basically took a character, Queen Margaret, that is in Shakespeare's plays Henry VI, 1, 2, 3, and Richard III. And that character is in 4 plays. Shakespeare kept bringing her back more than any other character, more than Falstaff, which everyone loves and knows about. She's in all these plays, and she was an integral part of English history. And she's an amazing character. So what this play that I did is take all of her bits from all the plays and put it in as a new play. So my sort of, it's not an argument, but those leaders, those strong, those interesting, those flawed female characters were in existence. They were active, they existed, but they weren't written about, or they were written about, but they're still being hidden. Most people don't even know about Queen Margaret, and yet she's in these plays because they're not plays I think they're not produced that much. And also, in order to have seen her character, her whole character's journey, you'd have to watch about 12 hours of Shakespeare. So no one really sort of knows about her. So that's another way of kind of going, you're using Shakespeare, we're using Shakespeare, but we're actually using it in a new way.
But don't you think that's
we're
new,
unpicking
new writing?
In the kind of, it's sort of, and it was half, but it's the kind of thing that I would say that Shakespeare would be up for, in that way of going, now we need to see these female characters.
One thing that's very interesting about that is that what Jeannie O'Hare, who wrote that play, did is took existing plays and cut them up and moved them around. Okay, but Shakespeare did the same thing. And when he wrote King Lear, he based that on a previous play called King Lear. And Hamlet was based on a play called Hamlet, right? And we have some information about what those plays like. So he himself did something similar to what Jeannie's done.
Totally. Because he liked the story.
Because he liked the story. Yeah. And because he thought he had something. Barbara, what do you think about this? I mean, the big provocation would be to say, I mean, following some of what Carrie said, and Carrie will tell me I'm crudifying what she said, but for the sake of the argument, if those plays can no longer represent the reality of our society, or put it more strongly, the way we would like our society to be, which would be a partnership of equals, why are we doing these plays?
Well, I mean, the reason we're still doing them 400 years later, and like many productions later, is, as we've all also said, there are still things to be found anew, and there are still kind of universally relevant things within the plays that kind of go along lines of gender and race and class and everything that we can still learn from and we can still reinvent. But I do agree that it is problematic to have that as the kind of basis and the central cornerstone around which our theatrical and literature kind of like library is built from. Because if we're saying that is the kind of gold stamp of like what it can be, then everything else is kind of like flawed in the kind of spider web from it. So I do feel like it is still important, but we run into problems when we think about the structures that it sets and the precedents that it sets as a kind of be-all, end-all, or as a kind of like foundation from which we can learn from it, and we can, like Jade is saying, we can use the kind of ingredients that are provided by it to build and learn and mess about with it and make things better. But I think the weaknesses and the flaws in it, we need to recognise them, as opposed to like pedestal.
No, I was just going to add of the beauty of storytelling and the tradition of passing on history and historical. These stories are the stepping stones of our theatre today, and I think it can be a useful springboard into saying it's still the same, and it really can highlight it if you set it in a modern kitchen and they're still having the same conversations as we do have when we come home from school on a Thursday night, as the characters that we're watching in Shakespeare are doing, then that can be very useful. I think there is some beauty in honouring the legacy of it, but I think also it can be useful to go, horrendously, these themes are still really prevalent in our day-to-day, but whether we need to use his words or someone else's. I think there's something that's huge that's happening in theatre at the moment throughout, where we are doing old plays, versions of them, like when we did a new version of Julie and stuff. And it's like, why are we doing these rewrites? And I think that they're a really good way of highlighting the fact that from the past to now, how much has actually moved forward.
Well, the argument against that, I think, is that one way of understanding ourselves now is to really understand the past. Where did we come from? And what's the difference between the way we think now and how people thought then? And it's only by really studying, really understanding, going deep into the way people thought men and women should or did relate to each other 400 years ago that we can really understand. If we don't do the plays as he wrote them, aren't we kind of robbing ourselves of a deep understanding of why we are like we are today? Carrie?
I think there's something that's fascinating that happens when you watch women play men's parts in Shakespeare, which is that, and I felt this when I watched you in the Shakespeares, the pinging out of the misogyny and sexism of the male characters, which I think we're kind of used to because it's really deep in our culture. It's deep in how we understand men and women in lots of our kind of storytelling culture. When you hear women say those words, when you see a woman play Hamlet and say the things that Hamlet says to Ophelia, it kind of explodes the sexism and makes you really think about and kind of challenge the assumptions of the character. So I guess I'm a real, advocate of hearing a woman's voice in a way, articulate that stuff.
Well, it's like what you said is like when you see a woman on stage doing a part that you've seen before with a man or was written for a man or written for a certain type of person, and you see a different type of person do it, it is different. And I think that is the brilliance, is that new things come out, new things ping out, and I think that is a reason for doing it.
Okay, great. Let's open it out now. Who's got a question or who's got something they want to say? Okay, right here. I think we got some moving mics. Let's just get the mic to you. Okay, I see you at the back. Let's go to the front, and then we'll go to the back. Yeah.
Is it better to open your auditions to everyone than choose to play it whoever is best at playing the character, no matter what their gender is or what their race is or what they look like? Or is it preferable to choose beforehand that they should be a different gender this time or a different race this time, and then specifically open auditions to them and them only?
Okay, that's such a good question, interesting question. What's behind that question, I think, or the way it seems to me, is whether the director of the show has made decisions before they even start meeting the actors about what they want their production to mean in these terms, in gender terms. Let's ask our director.
It's a really difficult question. It totally depends show to show. I think what you would do if you always opened up and then just picked the best actor is you would end up in a sort of quite complex and unclear. So say I just decided to do a Shakespeare and I just met like hundreds of actors and some of them were men and some of them were women, and I cast some men as the male characters and some women as the male characters, and it was all kind of a bit of a hodgepodge. And I'm talking more about that than I am about race, because I feel like we're moving to a point of, well, we should talk about what this is, colourblind casting, but we're moving to a point where that is has less implication in terms of our understanding of what the play means. That shouldn't be relevant. But I think in terms of gender, there are these still big questions about, who we cast in those parts. I think if I did that with no plan, you might end up with quite an unclear production, because you might have some men playing some parts and women playing other parts. So I guess I feel if we were going to try and make decisions about how to re-gender Shakespeare, it probably does need to come from a kind of authorial director's concept, as it did when Jade was really brilliantly in her production. It was so clear, wasn't it, what you guys were doing in that production? Mm-hmm. Does that answer?
But it's a good, challenging question. All right, okay, at the back. Thank you.
I feel as if it's not bad for females to act in male roles, but I feel like men, personally, they accentuate it better, because some roles need aggressive male people, whereas in comparison, how females, they have to put in effort to act a certain way to be a male character. Men, they facilitate it naturally because they just adopted to the natural characteristics of being a male.
I can hear that. What do you think?
I think you're saying, were you saying that you think some parts should be played by men because it will be harder for the woman to get to that aggressive place?
Yeah, because men,
is that what you're saying?
They naturally adopt it because of the fact that they're born into the stereotype of being aggressive and like having male characteristics and personality, in comparison to females who have to put effort in to actually act a certain way to make the role work.
I think I think putting effort in is a great thing. I like when I've played Hotspur, which is quite an aggressive character, and I think, firstly, I think some women can be more aggressive than some men, and and vice versa. I don't think it's that all men are aggressive or should be aggressive, and all women are not. But I also think that if you're playing a part, or you're as an actor, if you get asked to play a part that is quite different from you, I think that is a brilliant challenge, and that is why we enjoy acting, is because we have to try and get in the mindset of someone that may be very different to you. And also, it's really fun. I had to learn to box, and it was that I'd never boxed before, and I had to fight. And it's actually quite fun and quite freeing to be someone, or to act or pretend to be someone that's so different to you. And you can completely free yourself of all the constructs that you put on your own self and step into the shoes of someone that's going through such a different experience. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good challenge.
I totally agree. I also think that for me, the most feminine, the most thing that you could do the most to subvert something is to write some plays about violent women. I know that can probably sound a bit harsh, but we've been seeing plays of violent men for 400 years. They're the most violent men. And I think if we start putting women in those roles, you're really subverting something that's quite big.
Okay, no, so I got to challenge you on that. All right. It's on one of these plans around the table. The violent woman is in Taming of the Shrew, right? Okay, so that's the violent woman. I mean, there are other military women in Shakespeare. There's Joan of Arc in the Henry VIs. There's Cleopatra.
Lady Macbeth. There's Queen Margaret.
There's Queen Margaret. But Catherine in Taming of the Shrew, right? She's a violent woman.
Yeah. I don't really know that.
You don't really know. Who does?
She's not violent.
No, okay, go on.
She's not violent. She just doesn't do what her husband tells her to do all the time.
But people go, this isn't fair the way she's written. This is a bad play. This is a sexist play.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she doesn't know what her husband tells her to do.
Yeah.
Right? But I just thought you'd have thought that was a good thing.
That is a good thing.
Right. So
as in like she's her own woman. In some of the other plays, you see women only ever doing what the man tells them to do. But there's no mutual respect, and I think there needs to be mutual respect. And I think part of maybe the problem in Taming of the Shrew is that it swings completely the other way. But there's no mutual respect like you should have in any relationship. And if you actually see what happens in the play, she's not violent, and she just. I mean, I know I've done it, but a long time ago. So other people may know the play better, but I think she's been spoken of and about as being a very bad lady, a very bad woman, and I think how she's spoken about compared to how she actually acts is contrasting.
Okay. More questions for us. Yeah, right here. Is there a mic? Is there a mic that can reach you? Yeah, it's coming from over there. Thank you.
You put your hand up. Brilliant. There you go.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think with the Shakespeare characters, there's generally an age where you can take it on, isn't there? So, like for King Lear, it would be someone with a lot of experience in life, and someone who's slightly older and dealing with those kind of problems of the frailty and kind of the degrading of kind of the mind itself. So I was wondering, for me, when I reflect on that, I look at my grandfather, because he would have been in wars and will have been like almost conditioned to keep to himself and not make it anyone else's issue. So would you argue that we can't just change it? We have to wait till perception has changed, because the plays at the end of the day have to reflect what people consider to be a norm, or what people would perhaps relate to more. So say if you're looking at King Lear, I did look at the Glenda Jackson after I saw Ian McKellen, but for me, I could just relate so much more to Ian McKellen's. But then I guess you could argue in Midsummer Night's Dream, you could change Puck because there's no real connection for our generation.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anybody want to pick up that point that's just been made about needing to respect what is there, what has been written? Or another question? Okay, over there, right over there. Thank you.
So if you change the idea of the play, then you're changing the future in a way, because if there's nothing to push you forwards to starting to change something, then the change wouldn't happen. So for example, the roles in plays being played by different genders, if we don't experiment with that, then no one would, and it wouldn't be seen as normal in the future.
I totally agree.
That's part is so important.
I think it's great. I think what you said. The first thing you said was if we don't change what we're doing now, we're not going to change the future. I think it's brilliant, and we want to change the future. I think it's great.
But is that what you meant? Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. Anybody want to pick that up? Papa, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, and it changes the present as well, because I was chatting to my friend the other day about Doctor Who, right? Which I think is like an extension of this conversation, and she was talking about how she grew up always wanting to be Doctor Who's assistant because it just wasn't, because the precedent hadn't been set that that the part in that particular story or world of aliens was open to her. And now she's like, oh, I mean, she's from Huddersfield, just like Jodie, so she's like, I'm never going to play it now anyway. But that is a response to changes that we make in stories that are more universally told, like Shakespeare's, like Greek tragedies, like these things that we see on our big theatre stages and screens. It's an extension of that. So then we start talking about Bond. We start talking about.
Can I just pick up on this point here about? I feel like. The idea of age and youth is a good maybe allegory for gender maybe. So, because the idea of a young person trying to be an old person and trying to sort of be represent that life experience is probably not many, that's sort of maybe a bit ludicrous. And so it makes me wonder about that the sort of, going back to your original provocation, yes, I think it absolutely is a necessary and good thing to do, but it is also interesting to think about what is lost. What is the difference between, when you watch it, what's the difference between a woman playing a man and a man playing a man? Like quantitatively in the room, what is that?
And how much has that, just adding to that question, how much has that actually happened? Because when you were playing a man, were you playing them as a female? Because all the
I can only play it as a female.
That's what I'm saying, because we're not playing them as men, we're playing them as a woman embodying this male story, which is a different thing, right?
Okay, so I want to challenge all this in a particular way. I want you to think back to half an hour ago at the beginning of Carrie's and Tobias and Talisa's rehearsal. Because it was a very, very interesting moment. Either I can ask them to do it again or I can do it. It's probably easier if I do it. All right, do you remember this bit? Very early on when Carrie was explaining that one of the things you need to do is to imagine where you are, what's happening in the room. And they were saying, okay, so there's that's where the party's happening, or that's where the celebration, whatever's happening through there, and there's a door there. Do you remember? Okay. And Tobias came through that door, walked along the corridor, right, got to about here somewhere, and then Talisa came in behind him. Okay. And as they were doing that, everything changed in the room. Everybody stopped thinking about anything else. Suddenly there was silence in the room, just like that. Do you remember that? And I think that happened because you saw what they were imagining. You saw the corridor, you knew there was something going on through that door over there, and suddenly it was real. Out of nowhere, we're in a conference center, there's no scenery, there's very ordinary lighting, but suddenly they acted it, and it was real. Okay, so you can imagine it all. If you can imagine all that, thank you. If you can imagine all that, why can't you just imagine a woman is a man? A man is a woman. Yeah, what do you think about that?
I agree. I think, especially in theatre, we use our imagination so much. We're sat, you're sat in a room, you're looking on a stage, And okay, there might be a bit of set, there might be a door, there might be a bed to suggest a bedroom, but you totally go in, you're in that world, and if the play's good enough, you're suddenly not in the theatre, you're in that world. Your imagination has taken over and you're completely in the world of those characters. We use our imagination so much to imagine so much when we watch theatre that I totally agree.
So why are we having this conversation? Whatever it is, the 12th of October, 2018, we're having this conversation, this thing we can't imagine. This is so difficult. And we agree and we don't agree, and some people think, why can't we imagine this?
Go. I think we're in a tipping point. I feel like something really profound is happening. I think we can imagine it. I think that's what's changing. And I kind of want to pick up on what Pepper said, because I just think it's so profound that the stories we tell change the world. You know, they change how we understand the world, what we see, whether it's two women kissing on Brookside and that completely starting to change the conversation about gay sexuality on television, on daytime television, and how that changed the whole culture in that conversation about leading towards gay marriage. And, you know, whether it's about Papa playing Hamlet, whether it's about Jude taking on a male role in a Shakespeare play, whether it's about me as a woman telling plays through my own gaze as a woman and trying to kind of re-understand what men and women's interactions sexually are on stage. Or, you know, I feel very fired up about it, because I think storytellers have a responsibility and an opportunity to totally radically change the world around them, because they allow us all to see things differently and imagine things in new ways. Yeah. So I don't think we are struggling with that. I think something's pivoting and it's really exciting.
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes more. Who's got a question? Over there. Great. Yes, please.
You were saying, you were saying that, this is so loud, that when you saw women playing male characters in Shakespeare, and saying like specifically misogynistic or sexist lines, that was much more powerful, and I was wondering why you thought that was, like why it had such an impact seeing women playing these like more sexist roles.
Sexism's completely embedded in the way we tell stories and the way we see men and women, I think, still. And it happens all the time. So it's whether it's watching a play where the story's all about men and the women are wearing bikinis and they're kind of sidelined and then they've been cast because of the way they look, or, you know, it kind of goes through all of our culture. And something radical happens, I think, when you hear a woman say those words, when you hear a woman playing Hamlet, talking to Ophelia in the way that he does. I think you hear that differently, because actually we watch Hamlet and we just go, oh, he's being horrible to Ophelia. But deep in that, somewhere, there is something quite gendered about the way he speaks to her. He shames her for her sexuality. He wants to send her to a nunnery. It's really particular, and it is about gendered sexuality. So I think when you hear a woman say those words, it kind of breaks open all of the thoughts that you've always had about that bit of material, and you start to see it differently. It changes the lens, I guess.
So, if I can try and summarize what you're saying, Carrie, what really matters is to really hear, is really listen to what's being said on the surface, but underneath the surface as well, and what the taken for granted assumptions are in the writing, but really listen. And to use your phrase, Bob, I think you said to mess about with the plays. If messing about with the play, I think it was your phrase.
I'm so eloquent.
Is that what you said? That's good. Something like that. Yeah. If you messing about with the plays helps you to really understand, to hear, first to hear, and then to understand. Yeah. Is that? Yeah. We really, really want to know what's going on there. And if that half an hour of rehearsal that you saw today, if you'd seen the whole thing, which could be 5 or 6 weeks, what you would see the director and the actors doing is really trying to hear. What is really here, listening and listening and listening to what's really going on, right? And then to try and give that to an audience. Okay, we've got about 2 minutes. Who's got a question? Who's got a really important question? Who's got a question that if you don't ask it, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life?
That guy over
Who's
there.
got that question? There, right in the back.
Right.
Okay, that one, and then at the back.
We were discussing that when Shakespeare was writing his plays, there was already 2 women on the throne. So there's already a stereotypical view of women at the time. So now that we're like modern time era and we have men playing women, are they actually playing women, or are they playing a stereotypical like view of a woman? Because we can't define a woman and we can't define a man. So what do you define as a woman and what do you define as a man?
Wow, all right. Very good. Can we have another 2 hours to answer that? Go on.
Well, I do think like this conversation, I mean, we've got so much further. We've got how long? Do you know what I mean? But like, we're already talking in like quite binary terms in terms of what we expect of women and what we expect of men, exactly as you're saying. And like, I believe in gender in a more non-binary way, in a more sliding scale. So like, you've got women that have got a traditionally masculine characteristics and vice versa. So I think like it's also about us radically changing what our expectations of women and men are, which is to do with our expectations of gender or our understanding of gender.
Non-binary Shakespeare.
Well, I feel like I feel like when we did our Shakespeare, we basically we were dressed very neutrally in tracksuits, and it sort of took away our femininity, womanness. And so what I think you were left with then is not that you was, is that it was more of that, it was on that scale of, are these women playing men? Are these women playing male characters as women or as men? It was much more of a sliding scale rather than it being, look at these women playing men. I mean, I don't know if that helps. And I think that's all, I think that's definitely a part of what it should be if we are going to keep doing these plays, is that we need to address that it's not just black and white.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So somebody got a mic near you? Over there, at that table over there.
Hello.
Hi there.
Okay, this question's for Tobias. When do you think that it crosses the line, like when producers are producing plays and introducing female characters or characters of a different gender, when do you think it becomes exploitative, considering that socially it's a hot topic to introduce a new gender into an act or into a play? So when do you think it becomes exploitative and they're just trying to bump views or just get more likes or ratings?
Oh, crikey. Okay. I mean, I think my honest feeling is I don't think we're anywhere near it being exploitative. I think this is absolutely, despite some of the provocations of this conversation, I think the direction of travel is correct. That I think more opportunities for female-orientated stories and female characters is really important. I think actually improves the health of for everyone, because I think that will result in just more interesting stories. So I think I think the fear is unnecessary. I think it will be. You're laughing. What's making you laugh? So yeah, no, I don't think we need to worry. I think it's all good.
Does anybody else want to answer that question?
I think what you're saying is so true. The scales are so tipped in the wrong direction that, like, at the moment, it just doesn't matter. Yeah. Like, I'm not interested in whether some one guy's going to make loads of money out of it, because actually, in the grand scale of things, if it means that like 1 million young girls are going to be like, oh wow, that means I can do this thing. It doesn't really matter about like what small gain that person's got, because the total gain on the grander scale is so much more significant.
We can definitely afford to overcorrect,
And the gain isn't just for women. Like young men seeing women not in just one way, but the whole breadth and span of what a woman can be is really important for male health as well. It helps everyone that it's more equal representation.
Your last word on
that? I think that it's just there's so many branches off of this conversation that it's actually making me a bit woozy, because then you go on to talking about, could Eddie Redmayne play that part in The Danish Girl, and what we were saying about what is woman, what is man. I think that at the moment what needs to be concentrated on is time and effort into new writing about stories that we hear every day on the bus, but we aren't quite listening to yet on our TV screens.
And did Shakespeare?
I do love Shakespeare. I do love playing it and I love the writing, but I just feel like
Maybe
if you're going
we
to
should
do
just have a
it,
year off.
We should have a year
you
off.
should have a year off.
Let's have a year off.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Good. Okay, we've got a big sign there saying
End.
end. Before. Okay, so has anybody changed their mind at all in the course of this conversation? Have we been totally wasting our time? Has anybody changed their mind at all? And if so, do you want to tell us why?
Yeah, there's one hand up there.
Oh, there is. There's a hand up. Great.
That's the one who asked me the question.
Tell us why.
Yeah, go on.
Well, Tobias changed my mind. I thought in some sense when we see like an increase in plays with the addition of women when they prior weren't there, I kind of saw it as especially like a part of the Twitter culture that it was like leaning into this like leftist view that we need to add women, add people of different genders, ethnicities. But now I don't believe that anymore.
So
thank you, Tobias. Thank you.
He said that he doesn't think that it needs to be completely as broad.
I think we're good.
There's something that I don't believe that absolutely every show needs to be completely varied in its. You have to tick a box. I hate this idea that you have to. Sometimes I feel like going to a rehearsal room, not a rehearsal room, an audition, and I feel like I know I'm there because they had to tick female, brown. Like, I just feel like they had to just make sure that they've seen a varied number of people so that they're not going to get into trouble, basically. I feel, Downton Abbey, fine, watch it, great. Let's watch some white people go up and down some stairs. But what I think that when you need to turn the channel to the next TV program, then have a completely different story with all black people, or all gay people, or all people who were once men and are now women. I think that each TV program or each film doesn't have to do that thing of going, let's get someone gay, let's get someone white, let's get someone Asian, because then you're just kind of doing this wishy-washy thing where we feel like we're including everyone, but that's not how we're living yet. I think we need to celebrate the cultures and let's heal some wounds before we start to...
Sometimes a negative effect of it sometimes can be that everything is the same, and that's absolutely makes for bad drama, bad stories, that everything is not the same. Difference is what makes good drama, and so... But I think we're a long way from that, and it's an ongoing experiment, isn't it?
We need to stop. But the only thing I disagree with you about is Downton Abbey. Don't watch it.
Don't watch Downton Abbey.
I've
never actually watched Downton Abbey.
Hey, all of you, thank you very much, and thanks for listening to us. Thank you.
The theme of female leadership further and the creation of an equal world, we turn now to our poetry competition. In the summer, we ran training and workshops in performance poetry for students from each of the schools participating in this conference.
The theme we took was inspired by President Obama's poem, "To Thee I Sing, a Letter to My Daughters." When men become fathers of daughters, One of the things that becomes apparent are the obstacles they face growing up in a world where they don't have an equal voice.
We took this theme further. We explored the issues for both girls and boys growing up in a world full of gender stereotyping and an unequal voice. We wrote our own letters to our daughters and ran a competition to find the best performance poems dealing with the difficulties of gender inequality, imagining the beauty of a society which values everyone.
All the poems that were written were amazing, and we have placed them in an anthology along with some inspirational artwork by some students. You each have a copy of the anthology to take with you, and an electronic copy can be found on the Partnership of Equal, the website. The poetry was judged by a panel which included Dave Nita, who led the summer workshop.
We would now like to welcome Dave Nita to the stage for a spoken word performance of his own poetry before we then hear from the students whose poetry won the competition. Dave is a lawyer, a published poet, and a public speaker specializing in diversity, inclusion, and mental well-being. He is a commentator on race, politics, mental health, and the arts. Dave was included in Black Enterprise's list of the top 10 most powerful black men in Britain. Dave is also included in NASA's program to encourage the next generation of students into STEM.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Excellent. What an amazing conference. I have to say, I mean, look at this. It doesn't get any better, not even at the United Nations. I have to say that Mulberry is certainly no joke. And you students who are here are looking out at you, you're absolutely woke. So what I'm going to do is share 3 poems, and then we're going to get into the students' poems. The first poem is called Only Mother. I know we all say we love our mother, but sometimes we neglect her. And this poem is dedicated to the mother that we all share. Only mother. Not to worry. It's only mother. Use fuel like it's free. Not to worry. It's only mother. More plastic in the sea. Not to worry. It's only mother. Continue to deplete the ozone. After all, whose world is it? It is ours to dominate and to own. Not to worry. It's only mother. Ignore the melting polar ice cap. Ignore your fears. Forget your cares. The polar bears need no habitat. Not to worry. It's only mother. Just get rid of the Paris Agreement. Promote dirty factories with no regulation and a great deal of appeasement. Not to worry. It's only mother. Endangered species do not matter. Not to worry. It's only mother. The trees are better off as paper. Not to worry. It's only mother. There's absolutely no need to recycle. Mix all your waste, drive a gas guzzler, and forget about that bicycle. Not to worry. It's only mother. Don't reduce or reuse. Enlightenment and responsibility. You have a right to refuse. Not to worry. It's only mother. She's not looking all the time. Not to worry. It's only mother. She's getting old and weary, but she's doing just fine. Not to worry. It's only mother. No need for veneration. Posterity is a fallacy. We're the very last generation. Not to worry. It's only mother. Let's consume all her resources. Not to worry. It's only mother. She'll not stop our greedy forces. Not to worry. It's only mother. She'll never leave us alone. Not to worry. It's only mother. Her duty is to serve us as we sack her sacred throne. Not to worry. It's only mother. She'll never leave or forsake us. She'll never just let us be. Not to worry. It's only mother. Use her fuel like it's free. Not to worry. It's only mother. She'll always care. She'll always be there. Mother, mom, mama, not to worry. She's still there. She must be here somewhere. Thank you. Why read? There are those who have and those who need. There are those who follow and those who lead. The common thread that runs through those who lead, no matter what their race, gender, religion, or creed, they all cultivate a healthy greed to read. So let us choose to lead, and on words let us feed, and let us also write for others to read. Let us also write for others to read. Agreed? I hope you agree. And, by the way, that's what you all did. You all showed up, and with the reading that you have done and the information you've gathered, you've written. And now the anthology has been produced, and the world can now read. Important, not just to hear, but to write, to read. I'm going to close with stand up. You're not required to stand. I know you're standing in your heart already. It's an attitude. You can do it, so don't give up. Don't sleep away your dreams. You must wake up. Speak out your ambitions. Do not shut up. Your feelings and ideas, do not lock up. Express yourself. You must get up. And when you're learning in class, it's best to sit up in this race called life. You must keep up. And for your principles and rights, you must stand up. So arise, young people, arise. Full time, you realize that the best in life you can achieve. So don't ever compromise. Awake, young students. Open your eyes. No more listening to negative lies. Keep a positive vision alive. You are uniquely created. This is true. Each of you. And no one else can carry through that special mission you were put here on earth to do. So step up and claim your great destiny. Embrace it with your soul and all your energy, because this great destiny rightfully belongs to you, to each of you, to all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave, for such a fantastic performance. We will now have some performances by the brilliant winners of our poetry competition. Our performers are
Isra, performing on behalf of Faiza from Mulberry School for Girls.
Freya from Wickham High School.
Mariam from Mulberry School for Girls.
Abby from Wickham High School.
And Saeed from Mulberry UTC.
Please welcome our poets to the stage.
Nothing. He sits, curled up, quietly sobbing in the corner, afraid of the possibility that someone will walk in on him. He wonders, how long will he be able to live like this, and questions his purpose in life. An 11-year-old boy contemplating suicide without even knowing what it is. He holds himself up and walks to the bathroom. His eyes crimson, his cheeks soaked. The boy splashes his face with cold water, attempting to hide his hurt. He fidgets with a heavy heart, and when his sister asks what is wrong, he replies, lying, nothing, straining the corners of his mouth into a beautifully choreographed smile to hide his injured soul.
Boys don't cry. Boys don't cry, not because they don't want to, but because society says so. Girls can't yell because it's unladylike. Even if they want to, they will hold it back as they scream inside their minds and pray for silence. Boys won't cry. Boys won't cry because it makes them weak. To show emotion makes them lesser, and they get told to be a man. But a girl can cry a river, as long as she's not heard. But we have the right to cry and scream. We have the right to show our fear, our anger, passions, and tears. Because emotion isn't weak. And the strongest thing to do is wear our hearts upon our sleeves, because boys can cry and girls can scream. When society says to dry your eyes, let the tears keep flowing. When they say keep quiet, shout until your voice is heard. Because if we don't fight the stigma, they will never hear a word. Stay strong. Hold on. We'll win this fight. We are all human beings. Emotion is our right.
Real. The clock reads 1 minute to 12 as her child yells. Cars pass by, tires humming along to the city music. Dull murmurs carry themselves through the wall, wrapping around her like a comforting hug. Her eyes fall on the child in her arms, a smile lingering on her lips. She watches as he begins to settle. She watches as a final tear falls onto his delicate cheek. And she wonders how many tears he will shed silently, because real men don't cry. She wonders how many times his kindness will be confused for weakness, because real men are tough. She wonders how many times her son will be told to man up. She places him beside his sister as she stirs gently in her sleep. And she wonders how many times she will feel uncomfortable in her own skin, because real women have perfect features. She wonders how many times she will be told to stop being dramatic, because real women are emotional. She wonders how long it will be before her daughter feels insecure about herself. She gazes at her children sleeping silently. Distant sounds echo around them like a melody. She knows she will raise her son to not be part of the real men, but as a real man. She knows she will raise her daughter to not be part of the real woman, but as a real woman. And she knows she will raise her children, the people of the future, as equals. Lights blink through the window, casting shadows against the walls. Voices carry themselves through the wall, flowing from ear to ear. Night lies still above the ground as change is beginning. A mother whispers goodnight to her 2 sleeping children, and the clock reads 12. A new day has come.
A smattering of clouds like smoke float over the pale sky, gently swaying trees of oak, and a vibrant sun shines up high. The shopping bag weighs down her arm, cutting into her tightly balled fist. The sunny day is working its charm, and she's bought everything on her shopping list. She finds the walk home delightful. The distance from the shops to her house isn't far. She doesn't expect anything frightful, so she's completely surprised by the car. It rolls up beside her, and she can do nothing when a man shouts, "Nice tits, love," so she just grips her shopping bag tighter and keeps on walking.
a world worth the while. There could be freedom for us all to do what we love. There could be a life worth living if we never give it up. There could be beauty in the struggle if we open our eyes. There could be a world full of truth if we never believe the lies. Our women should be praised for the courage they have shown. Our women should be held up high because of how much they have grown. Our women should be mechanics and doctors if that is what they aspire to be. Our women should be able to live in a world full of freedom and joy, and that is a world that we should be happy to see. A world full of hopes and dreams for our future women is what we should be fighting for. A world where our future is full of educated women, no matter how rich or how poor. A world that is not blind to the strength of a woman that has a heart of a lioness with no show of fear. A world that is not deaf to the voices of the women with passion, which they never want to hear. We are no longer locked up in the shadows, so here comes the light. We are no longer afraid to stand up for what we believe is right. We are no longer living in misery, so you can watch us smile. We are standing together as one for all and all for one, so we can make a world worth the while. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your passion and creativity with us. We would now like to welcome Dave and Kate Beckenham to announce the winner to award all our poets with their prizes.
What a privilege it is to be here. I'm Kate Beckenham. I'm a theatre producer, and matching the privilege of being here today was the extreme privilege of spending an afternoon in the Mulberry Library reading these poems and all the other ones that were submitted as part of this project. Honestly, I mean, I'm a big poetry fan. I have a poetry book by my bed, or several, and I'd advise you all to have one. They're the best medicine you could possibly look for. But this was really special because there's something about poetry where it kind of taps into the very, very personal, and if distills language in such a way that you can make it have the greatest power. And I think we saw that just now in the readings. And to the courage of all of the writers, everyone has submitted to really go to their personal truth and then share it with us was huge. So thank you, everyone who submitted poems. And I encourage all of you, as Dave said, to go home after tonight and write your own poem about this conference. There's a lot of inspiration here, that's for sure. So, the winners. Dave, do you want to say anything?
No, just that I'd have to just assure you all, both adults and especially students, all of you who wrote, that it was an extremely difficult task for us because the quality of the poems were so amazing and said something so powerful. And what I think we noticed all today, that the readers read with such emphasis and energy and soul just now, as you're performing to an audience, so powerful. The rest of you, I want you to read to your parents, read to your siblings, read to your class, find an audience, 2, 3, 5. One day it will be 20, one day it will be 2,000, one day it will be a stadium. Just read to somebody your poetry, because there's something in writing it, but there's also something in performing it for the ears of somebody else. So I encourage you all to continue to do that. Thank you.
So, it's our privilege to give the prizes to Freya from Wickham High School for Boys Don't Cry, and Pfizer from Mulberry School for Girls for Nothing in joint third place. Freya and Pfizer.
And in joint second place, we have Abby from Wickham High School and Mariam from Mulberry School for Girls.
And in first place, Saeed from Mulberry UTC, with A World Worth the While.
We hope you have enjoyed the day so far and are looking forward to the discussions and performances still to come. Attorney General and a member of the House of Lords. A lawyer, she is a master of the bench of Middle Temple. She was previously Chancellor of both Oxford Brookes University and the University of Essex. Baroness Chakrabarti was Director of Liberty and a member of the Lesson Inquiry. Her second book, Of Woman, was published in 2017. Please join us in welcoming Chakrabarti to the stage.
Sisters, brothers, Mulberry people, have you had a good day? Yeah? Is your brain fried yet, or can you hang on for just a few more minutes? Yeah? Just a few more minutes. Okay, so I've got a riddle for you. What can only be given and never bought or sold? What can be shared and multiplied but never divided? So somebody's saying freedom a lot, but what else have I got? Gold? No, it's not gold, I tell you that. Equality? Go on. One more time, I'm going to read it to you. What can only be given and never bought or sold? What can be shared and multiplied but never divided? Did someone say love? So here's the thing. Here's the thing, my friends. Love was kind of along the right. I thought someone else said friendship as well, but there's a word that reflects that kind of connection between people that isn't just about the people who are closest to us, our friends, our family, our loved ones. That all makes sense. But if we actually want to change the world, we need to come together in bigger numbers than that. And there's a word that I love, and it's a bit of an old-fashioned word, but it's coming back into fashion. And the word is solidarity. Now, why do I love this word solidarity? Look, it's a good old-fashioned socialist word. I'm not going to bullshit you, right? But what I love about this word is that it reflects something very basic in the human condition, which we all share. And that is that whilst we are brilliant, beautiful, clever, individual creatures, we are social creatures. And we are at our best and our most powerful when we come together in solidarity. That is how we change the world, I hope, for the better. And the great thing also about this word solidarity is that it reflects where we're going. It reflects the destination that I hope we all want, but it's also the means of transport to that destination. How are we going to change the world? Together in solidarity with one another. And if we don't come together in that way, we'll just be looking at the world, complaining about the world, feeling the injustice, but not making the change that we want to see, that I know that you can make happen with each other in solidarity, just as you've been doing in this wonderful place in Westminster, in the heart of our democracy here in Britain today. I have so much faith in you, my Mulberry sisters and brothers. Your school and your schools are very, very dear to my heart. I couldn't find my Mulberry sweater today, but I promised to find it before I come again if I'm ever asked again. And I promised not to take too much of your time because it's Friday and I want you to go off and have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful school year and a wonderful future, and I want you to change the world. But before I go and let you go, I want to, if I may, read just a few paragraphs from my book. My book that's called Of Women in the 21st Century. And the short reading goes like this. Imagine a Martian falls to Earth tonight. Let's say Martians are sexless and completely unaccustomed to sexual or gender-based difference on their own planet. You've got to work with me, okay? You're thinking about the Martian, right? Our alien friend could arrive absolutely anywhere in our world, on any continent, in a rich, poor, urban, or rural environment. What difference, discrimination, or oppression would they notice everywhere and most of all? Surely they couldn't fail to observe that roughly half the race is overtly diminished in a way that diminishes the other half in a manner that's perhaps more subtle, but nonetheless real. Look at the suicide rates of young men in particular. Look at them all over the world, in and out of war, crime, and incarceration. Look at your kind, clever, and gentle sons, brothers, husbands, and lovers, and the pressures that can make them become the closed and invulnerable bullies who first bullied them. Wasted potential, lost happiness, wasted life. I don't want to call the glass half empty, but the pace of its filling is certainly too slow. 20 years ago, I thought we were in inevitable positive transition. Fresh from the comfort and confidence of a completely free and relatively egalitarian state higher education, I had all the time in the world and thought I wouldn't need it. Now I'm not so sure, at least in the short term. I had so much faith in my generation of similarly educated young men and women who shared classes, books, and dreams, but grew up to betray each other and themselves with crunched credit, illegal wars, and a more unequal world of our own making. What would a Pankhurst or de Beauvoir make of my generation of feminists? No doubt there would be some cause for celebration, but the festivities would surely be muted. Women vote, fight, and own property and power in many parts of the world. But whether by hook or by crook, an unbowed misogynist took the keys to the White House from a woman who once seemed a near inevitable first female leader of the free world. In so many places, women still learn, earn, influence, and govern less and suffer more, whether from the petty but dehumanizing indignities of casual objectification and discrimination, or from the emotional, sexual, and physical violence that dulls and even snuffs out so many of their lives too soon. Gender injustice may be the greatest human rights abuse on the planet. It blights first and developing worlds, rich and poor women in the context of health, wealth, education, representation, opportunity, and security everywhere. It is no exaggeration to describe it as an apartheid, but not limited to one country or historical period. For this ancient and continuing wrong is millennial in duration and global in reach. Only radical solutions can even scratch its surface. However, the prize is a great one because of the collateral benefits to peace, prosperity, sustainability, and general human happiness. All this because we are all interconnected, and all men are of women too.
Thank you for sharing your work with us. We have now almost reached the end of our day. There is an evaluation form on your table to fill in. Please complete it and leave it on the table for us.
We have discussed, considered, and debated what we can contribute to gender equality. Today is a day that has filled us all with hope for the progress that we want to see in the world.
This conference is proof of the importance of equitable education. The schools represented here today as institutions that have committed themselves to championing young people. Our teachers nurture us, challenge us, and instill in us a sense of power to make a difference.
There is still work to be done. Our speakers have given us help and encouragement, but they have also shown us that there are obstacles and challenges ahead of us. It is our hope that all of you today will live knowing what those challenges are, but feeling empowered to overcome them.
We would like to thank you once again for joining us, and we sincerely hope you enjoyed your day.
We hope that you'll leave us with new ideas for how you can help to create a more equal and just society for all. I would now like to ask Dr. Ogden, the CEO of the Mulberry Schools Trust, to come to the stage and make some thank yous and say some final words.
Well, thank you very much. And I just want your attention for just a little bit longer because we have got some thank yous that we need to say. The first thank you, from my point of view, is to our brilliant, brilliant hosts today who've just been absolutely phenomenal. Please give them a massive cheer. So there are just a few things to say before we finally end the day. The first is a thanks to all the panellists, the actors and speakers, and to our poet, Dave Neater. And there have been many people who've been behind this conference today. It's taken 18 months of planning. And there is a big team behind it. I'm not going to name everybody. But if you could just show your thanks and appreciation to all the people who have put this together for you today. I want to thank the teachers that have brought you here and who've trained you back in your schools, all those materials that were produced to ensure that you were able to get the most out of today. Thank you so much to all of you teachers for coming and for doing all of that preparation. It was just so important. And also, particularly to the teachers that prepared our student performers, and especially, most importantly, to the student performers this morning and this afternoon from all three schools that were involved. If you could put your hands together for them as well. Now, although there have been so many people involved in this, I'm going to single out three. Three people who have been phenomenal throughout the course of the last 18 months in making sure that everything today ran so smoothly. And as you'll see, there are a huge number of moving parts to this conference, not least making sure that we had enough glow sticks. So I would like to ask the following people to come to the stage and just receive what is a really very small token of thanks for everything that they've done. It's Sam Maynard, Chris Stone, and Joe Latham. If you could come to the front, please. Okay, so the very, very last thing to say is this. I think what is important now is what you do after today. And the postcards that you've written, I hope you filled them out. It was for one action that you are going to commit to. If you leave those postcards with us on your tables, make sure that your school's name and your name is on those postcards. In 3 months' time, we will post those cards to your school to give back to you. Now, those postcards are really important because not only do they contain the poetry that was written by the winners of the poetry competition, they also act as a reflection on the things that you've learned today and the commitments that you make going forward. And those commitments, they can be big, they can be small, but what matters is that you remember them and that you act by them. In the end, these conferences that we have, all of the effort over 18 months that goes into them, all the effort of the compares, of Joe, Sam, Chris, everybody who's worked on this, is that something happens to make a better and fairer future. And so I would ask you, as you go back today, to think about what that is. And in 3 months' time, when you get those postcards back, you will feel that you've been able to enact at least some of the things that you committed to today. So with that, I ask you to go safely, to have a really great evening tonight, to have a great weekend, and to take back to your schools everything that you've learned. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.